Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Tricky Towers. I know it's tricky to rock a rhyme that's right on time. It's tricky, but did you know that towers can be tricky as well? And I'm not just talking about the Tower of Hanoi that BioWare uses in every... Okay, this is a little too referential to begin with. This is $15 on Steam. I believe I got a code from the developers via Kate, my wife, who we played this game with on stream on the last Monday that went by, but also on her recent Thursday subscriber stream, which is how I became notified of it. What is Tricky Towers, essentially? It is effectively multiplayer Tetris with physics. There's a few different game modes, but effectively there's lots of puzzle games that take tetrominoes and you try to stack them and win a race or, you know, cause your opponent to lose by building up blocks on their side. This takes that formula and adds a tricky little towery twist to it by having a few different kind of modes that you can play. So one is race to the top. One is, don't drop any blocks. If any blocks fall off the sides of the board, then you lose health, and if you run out of health, you die. And the other one is basically cram as many blocks into a very small physical space as you can, and the person who crams the most blocks in here wins. This definitely shines in online. It also has local multiplayer. And if you have friends that you can play this with online, I think you can have a ton of fun as we have on the NLSS this week. But it does have a small single-player campaign as well, and I'll do my best to explain the basics, and then hopefully we'll be able to hop online and find some players. According to Steam charts, there's about 25 people online right now, which is not great, but also not awful. But I've come to realize that, you know, in indie multiplayer games, the online is a bonus. If you have friends that you can play it with, that's awesome. You can organize games. If not, you know, your mileage may vary with actually finding opponents online, unless you're playing something like Battlerite, which has, 10,000 concurrent players. But anyway, several different wizards here. None of them have unique abilities, but still, we'll hop into a game here. And why don't we just start on trial number 1? And we can probably play through several trials here in, 5 or 10 minutes. So this is the first of the 3 major game modes. There's no way that you can actually just play normal matches against the AI, to the best of my knowledge. It's all contained in these kind of, like, trial matches that are basically self-contained puzzles. And it actually, in a way, I think it almost misrepresents what the game's about. But it does give you an idea of what's going on here, because the game, for me, is definitely more about that kind of multiplayer zaniness and, watching your friend's tower collapse and laughing about it and having no knowledge that yours is about to collapse as well. But this makes it almost seem like more of like a self-contained, single-player, kind of like Tetris variant, which I suppose in some ways it is, but I don't think that's the driving element here. So this is the race mode, and our goal in the race mode is just to build a tower that gets to that height. Oh god, it didn't hold. That's fine, we still win, because we were across the finish line when our block fell. That one's pretty easy, because it's the first trial that you face in the game, but you got a little taste of the dark magic that consists of the power-ups in the game that you can send to either help yourself or to hinder your opponents, and usually large blocks do hinder your opponents. Sometimes they can accidentally give them the win, though. Hopefully that's what happens right here. We're not really playing against the AI, except we're playing against the game designer right now. This is where the Tetris with physics comes in, and this is the survival mode. The survival mode is basically use every single block that they give you. This is horrible. Ooh, we're still in this, though. Use every single block that they give you. If you ever drop a block, you lose 1 HP, and you can see we have 3 hearts there. But thankfully for us, there is a, you have iframes, basically. We're done, though. Let's just restart it quickly before we fail. You have iframes, so if you drop, 30 blocks at exactly the same time, you're not going to lose 30 HP. First off, it's not possible. Secondly, that would not be as engaging, I suppose, as encountering a situation in which you can sort of, string it together here. This is definitely my worst game mode. I'll just come out and say it, right off the bat. I'm not the world's greatest Tetris player, and that's... I don't really need to say it. That's the kind of thing that's going to become apparent the more and more we play here. But I have found myself having varying degrees of success in Tricky Towers regardless. My favorite mode is the puzzle mode, which you'll see coming up in probably in the next trial, now that I think about it, and then we'll get a couple of those. But the puzzle mode is, for me, the most engaging. Race is pretty good as well. Survival, not really my speed. I tend to lose pretty much every match in survival. So next is puzzle. This one is a little tricky to explain, but once you get it, you get it. We have to stack as many blocks as we possibly can beneath this laser right here. So it's not just about making sure the blocks fit together. It's about making sure the blocks fit together in a way that leaves you with the most space possible to put more blocks. So in the trial modes, you only have, 8 or 9 blocks or whatever we've got here, so we can slot those in really easily. This one's simple because I've already done it before, so don't think that I'm some kind of, Tetris wizard, and you're saying, we didn't think that you were some kind of Tetris wizard based on your previous play, and I think that's fair. But the way that it works in online, I think, is even more fun, where basically they just give you endless blocks, and if you ever cross the laser, then they count how many blocks you were able to stack, and that's the end of it. We only have 2 blocks left, so let's just make these look perfect. I don't know if that'll even fit into that slot there. That's okay. So, I mean, that's a pretty quick rundown of what you get in the first, or in the 3 major game modes here. We'll do one more race, and then maybe we'll go look online, because really the multiplayer is the defining aspect of this. Like, I read the comments, and I know that there is a contingent of people, and, they're different people every time. There's a contingent of people who will look at a game like this and be like, well, I get it, it's Tetris, I'm not that interested, and that's fair, if you're not interested in a competitive puzzle game, then this probably isn't going to appeal to you in general, but I will caution you that right now there's more than meets the eye. Where it really becomes fun is when you get into the multiplayer zaniness, but for right now, the single player, I have to admit, is not too much of a draw. If you were buying this game exclusively for the single player, I think it's conceivable that you would sort of, excuse me, we've crossed the finish line. You'd conceivably not really understand the draw unless you were super hardcore into these kinds of games, but the multiplayer is really where it's at, especially if you have friends that you can reliably link up with, because, again, your mileage will vary with the size of a community on an indie multiplayer game. Local multiplayer as well, but, that's... The fraction of the population that is relevant for is probably a little smaller than the online side. So, we'll go online here. You don't get experience for playing games with friends, but I have played probably 4, maybe even 5 hours of this. On Kate's stream, me, Kate, and Michael A.L. Fox played it for 2.5, 3 hours. And then we played it twice on the NLSS this week, which I think is the most ringing endorsement that I can say right now, is if you can find people to play it with, it's a ton of fun. We've been playing it, pretty rigorously this week. Hopefully we'll be able to find some other people here to play with as well. Unfortunately, we may have to tough this out for a little bit here. One thing I will say that I'm not a huge fan of from an interface standpoint, I don't know if this actually works this way, or maybe it's like a UI quirk, but when indie games come out and they're multiplayer focused, I do dislike when they fracture the audience like this, and it can be kind of cumbersome, because you're like, well, what if you want people that only want to play puzzle games and they're willing to wait 45 minutes for it? Well, I understand that, but at the same time, I sort of feel like if it was just like play online, quick match, private match or something like that, it might work better to avoid, like, fracturing the community. Like, let me, I just want to go with whatever the default setting is. Hopefully random actually means that we can, oh, there we go. Even if we're only in with one person, that's fine by me. But this is even better. But I do think that, it can be dangerous to fracture the community like that. But luckily we got into a game that didn't take too long here. And hopefully there are ways to play random modes online, so hopefully that's the case. But this is where things get really interesting, 7 minutes or 8 minutes into the video, because now we should be able to get power-ups, and we can use those power-ups to either inhibit our enemies or to make our own run better. And it's not just what kind of a player are you, like, are you light side or dark side, There's actual tactics that come into play, like, for example, if you really need shoring up your own tower because it's built on a shaky foundation, you're gonna want to use power-ups for yourself. Vice versa, I used dark magic this time when I crossed that line, which is when you get a power-up, to make my opponent's area a little viney. I've got to be honest, I don't know what that one does. All the other power-ups I think I'm fairly familiar with. Oh my god, we need like a very specific subset of pieces here to make this work. All the other power-ups I'm fairly familiar with, but the viney one I'm not sure. So keep in mind, we're going to get power-ups when we cross this line. We got a vine. A vine is very useful. So they just gave us the endlessly rotating option here. I'm just going to dump that piece, and thankfully it stayed. And now there's a balloon, and the balloon unfortunately makes your piece take forever to land. Okay, so it says I'm in first right now, which feels like it can't be right, but apparently is. The vine just gives you a little bit more structural integrity, like the pieces stick together more than they otherwise would. You got that risk reward where you don't want to just, you know, bum rush the lightning bolt. By the way, breaks the last piece or the highest piece that you've put down in order to, you know, maybe you put down a shaky piece or something like that. You don't just want to bum rush the ending, because as you can see, we're getting a little bit of sway here, and I'm trying to resist the temptation to just be like, you ain't got the answer, sway, to Dan Giesling our way through this situation, but we're getting a little bit of lean, and the lean is not going to be good. There are levels that actually, or modes that have wind associated with them, and that's where it becomes truly dangerous, but even just like a little bit of lean... Oh, that's bad. A little bit of lean coming through the top here is not a good situation. This is where the Tetris with physics aspect starts to become readily apparent. How this thing is holding up is beyond me. You think it'll... we lost! I didn't even notice that he was getting there. You know what? Well played. His tower looks a lot better than mine. Could be worse, though, left player. And that's more of an accurate representation of what's going on with Tricky Towers, I think. Hopefully we'll get a different mode here, but we might just be doing races, and if we're just doing races, that's fine. But puzzles where it's at, in my opinion. Race normal. It's okay. Beggars can't be choosers. Again, this is the kind of thing... in a way, I've really come to change the way that I see online multiplayer. You know, I was coming from... I guess it's at this point it might be a little bit of an older school mindset, but that online multiplayer means there should be someone available to play at all times, you know? Otherwise, what's the point of online? And I've come to realize, I think that that's in the era of, you know, 12 indie games coming out on Steam every single day, that's not realistic. And not everybody is going to be in this exact same situation, but I'm interested to see what people's thoughts on it are. For me personally now, when I think of online multiplayer, it's like, this is an easy way for me to play with friends, as opposed to having to rely on local multiplayer, which means that they have to, you know, fly to my city. As I grow older and older, and, you know, people move away to pursue employment opportunities, or, you know, to be with loved ones, etc., etc., online multiplayer is just a convenient way to schedule private games, and it might not be, you know, as amazing as it could be if there were 1,000 players online in every game at every available opportunity, but that's also unrealistic to have that happen in the first place. So I just gave them big pieces here. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. I mean, you saw that big piece that they gave me actually was pretty good because it coincided with a vine. And being able to use a big vine created a situation that was really good for the structural integrity of my Tricky Tower here. Mind you, I don't want to misrepresent it and say that there's like, oh my god, that guy's gone full tilt mode. It never works, man. It's not worth it. I've seen people try that strategy. It's not going to do what you need it to do. But yeah, I don't want to misrepresent the level of strategy. Like, there are some strategic elements in the game, but it's not like, you know, you're playing StarCraft or something here. You know, it's not that deep necessarily. Ooh, I think this is a good time for an endlessly rotating big block. Although, I can't help but notice a little bit of sway up here at the top. We might be able to hold it together though, but I gotta say, this tower's getting a little tricky, and there it goes. That's alright, you know. Oh, okay, now it's less alright because the whole thing has come crashing down to the ground. I love when you can do like a maneuver like that where you can just slot it in perfectly. But yeah, there are other Tetris games that are, you know, Tetris-based games. I don't know to what degree Tetris is, oh god, copy-ridden or whatever at this point. You know, the game came out 30 years ago, but I think this one is engaging for its multiplayer aspects. Dude, the dude on the right is just crushing it. We'll do one more match here. And we'll do another race because I think I'm embarrassed by the way that one went down. But I really think that this is a great multiplayer experience. I don't even think you need to like Tetris that much to be into it. Like, I have a PTSD associated with Tetris. My parents played the crap out of Tetris 2 on Super Nintendo when I was like 4 to 9 years old. It was like their favorite game of all time. They were, I don't want to say addicted, but compelled to play a lot of it. So I've had kind of like an unnatural distaste for Tetris throughout my, you know, teenage years, adolescence, and adult life. Young adult life, at least. But in spite of that, I haven't let it hold me down in this game. And, well, I mean, I'm pretty bad at it, as you can tell. But apart from that, I'm actually a pretty big fan. And it reminds me a little bit of not in terms of its gameplay, but in terms of, like, the selling points, it's a lot like... Oh, what is that game? It's a game that... You're gonna think I'm having, like, early onset dementia or something like that, but I'm just trying to think of the name. By the way, if you get a power-up and you don't like it, you still need to try to slot it in, or you don't get credit for having used it. Otherwise, they'll just continually give you the same power-up over and over. I wonder if we can just wedge this one in here perfectly. Nope. Okay, almost sent the whole thing down. It's a tower, not tower defense, but you control like a general, and you place towers, you gain resources. It's an online multiplayer game. Nick and I played it all the time on the show, and I've since forgotten it. But it was a great game, and now I feel bad. I just keep wanting to say Tower Heist. But it's like that, you know? You're fairly unlikely to find a multiplayer game every single time you play at your leisure. Even though I have to say that, you know, for an indie game, the fact that there's games kind of on demand is a little surprising to me to begin with. Oh, I really thought we could slot it in there. Yeah, in spite of this... Oh, you don't want to use ice either. In spite of this, if you can find people to play with on your own, if you can handle that aspect, I think you'll have a good time. So I've made a terrible decision, and I've actually chosen to build my tower with these ice blocks that my enemy is giving me. Ice is extremely bad to build on, because if you have any sort of sway, it's going to be compounded by it, basically. And I kind of think, like, maybe we should just crash that down. Maybe if we handle things properly here, we'll be fine. But as you can see, I'm kind of, I have a bad track record. I tend to build towers that have, like, a divot in the middle, a seam that can be exploited. But hopefully this vine helps hold it all together. There we go. We actually may be able to compete on this one. That was not good placement. Okay, don't tilt and just start throwing them down for no reason here. Do want to try to land them. That was terrible. That could be good. Okay, here we go. We've got a structure. It's us versus the dude on the far right, at least for now. Oh, when he slots it in just right. Mess with him. Throw a bubble up there. 2, 1. I'm the world's greatest. I'm sorry that you had to witness that massacre on stream. I think if I was the dude on the right, I'd be pretty pissed off, because the tower that I have is really good on the bottom, and then just a piece of garbage that has no reason being held, or no business being held together there on the upper third. So I'd say lucky me on that one. Let's see if we can find a puzzle game, and if not, we can host one for a while. Or let's just, I guess we'll just look for a random game for now and see if it's not race. This is still race. I understand you're looking for someone to race with, but I don't really want to race right now. What if I just go puzzle normal? Somebody will join me in puzzle normal. So yeah, this is Tricky Towers. I mean, in terms of negatives, they're pretty obvious. It doesn't have a robust single-player experience. The Trials modes are curated. Oh my god, someone is... Oh, but I don't want to play puzzle normal. I hate to do that. You're going to think that I'm an asshole for doing that, but puzzle special is where it's at, I promise you. Hopefully we can get someone to do it. If not, we can go back to puzzle normal. He found me! Excellent. We can just start it, that's okay. I doubt we'll find anybody else. But, maybe when you go for random, it does give you just the quick match feature, which is, or the functionality of quick match, which is fine by me. Not a robust single-player experience, curated single-player levels that don't necessarily, and I'm not, you know, firing shots at the developers, but don't necessarily capture the experience of the multiplayer game. But the multiplayer game itself is really, really fun, especially if you have friends that you can, you know, swear at as you play it. So the goal in puzzle mode, in case you've forgotten, is to stack up as many blocks as you possibly can. If a block before you hit the laser. If a block falls, I'm gonna try this, as stupid as this might seem. If a block falls, you move one grid space up towards the laser beam. If you cross the laser beam, your run is over, and you have to hope that you still get more than your opponent. So the real trick here is you start with a certain number of gaps. If you really want to get high scores, you have to figure out how to create your own gaps, which is a lot harder than it seems, I promise. You also need sometimes to worry about, well, a lot of time to worry about weight. Like this time, we might be able to sneak in there, but I doubt it. I think instead I'm going to try to create another gap by going like this. And hopefully if we pile a little bit more weight on here, this will straighten out. Maybe not. But if it straightens out, it should create a situation... Oh, I shouldn't have placed this here. If this straightens out, it should create a situation where we have more blocks to put things on, or more space to put things on. We just want to make sure we're not creating too much of a lean here. I'm going to stack this here. It's not a perfect solution, but it buys us a little time. In the end, we may have to try something a little sneaky here. Like, I don't think this is going to work anymore. We could maybe try to just slot it in like that, but why don't we go for broke and try to do a quick little double tap here. Oh, it almost worked. That's okay, that's okay. Oh, we've got an HTC Vive update in the background right now. Tell you what, now doesn't seem like the right time for that. But I can... Oh, there we go, I closed it. Sweet. You couldn't see it on screen anyway, but... I gotta be honest, Skunk You, I've practiced a little bit of Puzzle Special. Don't be perturbed if you lose a couple games in a row. You take a shot at the champ, you best not miss. Okay, so this one's tough. We've got like a 5-block setup there. And that's tough because it's difficult to, in your head, figure out how we're gonna make that work. But for now, I don't think we need to worry about it too much. This orange block doesn't really fit in there in an ideal fashion. This one does. I'm just hoping this doesn't, you know, collapse the whole structure here. How the hell are we gonna fit? I think we can do it. I think we can do it. Do we want this like this, or do we want that like that? Or do we want it like this? I think I'm just gonna stack it up like this for now. That might be our undoing, by the way. But we'll find out. We can definitely get this one setting. I mean, I'm looking at my opponent's screen and I'm like, maybe we're okay. Not to fire shots at them or anything like that, but... Okay, this is the moment of truth. We need to move this one to the right. This is never gonna work. Do not do that. Okay, good choice to not make that decision. That probably would have ruined things for you. So let's leave one space so that we can do something there. This is the one that we need to move over. Move this one over as soon as we come in. Just get ready, boys. Now! It worked. Now this is pod racing. Okay. It does make you feel like a genius when you make it happen. Unfortunately, we've not created any blocks, or any gaps, I should say, so it's going to be pretty tough for us to, you know, find a way to keep this one going. But we haven't had any blocks drop either, so I feel like we might be able to slot in another one or two. Like, this one I don't think will stay, and this could cause, like, a catastrophic problem here, but never tell me the odds! Oh god, that's all of them. That's all of them. He's just gonna take the easy win, and you know what? I don't blame him one bit. Oh, he's not... Oh, he's got no choice. He's gonna cross the line. But still, he beat us bad on that one, because I lost my entire left side. I never really wedged it, you know? I had one empty space there, which makes a lot of sense. 13's a respectable score. That's what I get for shit talking. Anyway, this is Tricky Towers. It's 15 bucks on Steam. If you're buying it for single player only, make sure that this is something you're into. You know, you gotta be passionate about the tetrominoes, whatever. In order to get your money's worth, I think, for single player. But if you have friends that you can play it with, easy couple of evenings at the very least that you can get out of this, having a good time, shooting the shit with one another, and ruining each other's towers, and then laughing as you figure out which one of your friends are deficient when it comes to, you know, playing with Lego in the real-time environment. I would really recommend it for real, especially if you have friends you can play with. You can see the infectious level of fun that we're having on the NLSS. But for now, thanks for watching. If you want to pick it up on Steam, there will be a link in the video description below. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more Let's Look Ats in the future. Click the like button if you enjoyed the video. It helps out a great deal. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.